What's up, guys? Brian here, and we are going to be doing my 2026 NFL mock draft. Now, I'm going to be doing things a little differently this time around. Usually, I post just the draft on Twitter and some write ups. This year, I'm just going to walk you guys through the picks and talk about them, all right? So, here we are, selected all teams. We are only going to be doing one round. And here we are in the draft room. Now, I'm going to be predicting trades as well. So, let's get into it. All right, let's start. That being said, first pick is pretty much a shoo-in. We all know who it is. It's going to be no surprise at all. It's going to be Fernando Mendoza. All right, second pick. Now, there's definitely two guys here that I'm debating, them being Arvell Reese and David Bailey. Apparently, the Jets canceled a pre-draft visit with David Bailey, which tells me one of two things. Either they know everything they want to about him and they don't have to gather more information, or they're not looking for him anymore and don't want to waste his time. And I'm going to go with the latter there and say that they're looking at Arvell Reese. And I think Arvell Reese is going to be a valuable piece for that Aaron Glenn defense. Be a versatile kind of chess piece kind of guy. Can play a lot of roles for them. And I think that the Jets are going to value that. All right, here we have the third pick with the Arizona Cardinals. And this is where my first trade is going to be happening. I'm going to have Kansas City moving up. Now, apparently the Cardinals are in talks with the Saints and Kansas City about moving up. And I just think out of conference kind of makes more sense to get a trade done. So Arizona's going to be sending pick 3 and pick 104. Kansas City is going to be sending pick 1, pick 40, and pick 74 to get that done. And with that pick, Kansas City's going to be taking David Bailey. Now, while they do have Karlaftis, he's a guy that, wins with power usually. And Bailey's a guy who wins with a lot of finesse. So I think it's going to be nice for Kansas City to get kind of complementary pass rushers on this team and give someone a running mate to help Karlaftis out. All right, Tennessee. Now, Tennessee, kind of been hearing noise about two guys, those being Jeremiah Love and Sonny Styles. Sonny Styles, mainly due to the fact that Saleh, you know how he had Fred Warner in San Francisco. And, if he wants to kind of restart this defense here, maybe that's the guy that he wants to be his identity with that defense. But I just think the talent of Jeremiah Love is just too hard to pass up for the Titans. And he would make things so much easier on Cam Ward moving into year 2. So I'm going to roll with Jeremiah Love here. Now, here we have the New York Giants, who have 2 picks in the top 10 after the Dexter Lawrence trade. And I think that changes what they wanted to do, or what they're going to do in this draft. 2 guys here that we're hearing a lot of buzz about is Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs. As we know, Harbaugh really values both of those positions for the defense. He had Kyle Hamilton and Roquan Smith in Baltimore. But I just think the guy that personally I think they should take is going to be Caleb Downs. And I personally, Caleb Downs is arguably, if not the best player in this draft. And the amount of things he can do for that defense would be sensational. Not that Sonny Styles can't do a lot of things, but I just think Caleb Downs offers a lot more versatility with the things he can do. And I just think it's too much for Harbaugh to pass up. And especially this linebacker class has decent depth. So I think they can snag a guy like Jacob Rodriguez in the second round. Caleb Downs going to the New York Giants. Now, here we have the Cleveland Browns. And I'm actually predicting another trade here. I'm going to have Cleveland trading with the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I'm not sure if Cleveland's really wanting to move, but I think it would be wise for them just to acquire more picks and get more talent for their team, as they do have a decent amount of, I feel like, holes to fill. So Cleveland's going to be sending pick 6 and pick 39. Dallas is going to be sending both of those first-round picks they just got. And Jerry's a guy, I just feel like this guy is his kind of guy, and Jerry's aggressive, and he's not going to take the chance to miss out on him. And that's Sonny Styles. Outside of Quinton Williams, that defense really doesn't have an identity or any guys. And I think Sonny Styles can be that identity piece. And I think Jerry's going to be aggressive to get him, whether that's at 6 or even earlier. And more importantly, I think Washington would be a team that would want Sonny Styles as well. So jumping in front of a division rival seems like the kind of thing Jerry would want to do. All right, now that leaves us with Washington. They have to pivot now. I feel like we're really eyeing Sonny Styles, but I think they need to help this offense out. You know, Terry McLaurin is the only real offensive weapon that this team has as a receiving threat, and I think just adding more receivers to that room would be huge for Jaden Daniels. And who better than Carnell Tate to add to the mix? Okay, now we're on to the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints here can really go a bunch of directions too. Definitely have a lot of holes to fill, but I think the player that makes the most sense here, good value pick as well, really only sliding due to some concerns, you know, physically and with a storyline going on, and that's Ruben Bain. You watch the tape and the film, Ruben Bain, the talent is undeniable. If it weren't for those little questionable concerns, I think he would be going much earlier than this. So the Saints get a premier edge guy that should really have a huge impact to their defense. Okay, here we are with the Cardinals with their first selection. And the Cardinals are in a good spot here because the guy that they were probably eyeing at 3 ends up just falling to them at 9, and that's Francis Mauigoa. So they end up just getting another piece to add to that offensive line and build on it, because outside of Paris Johnson, they really don't have much there for them. So adding Mauigoa would be a huge help to them. Okay, New York Giants with their next selection. They had taken Caleb Downs, and now I think they look on the offensive side of the ball. The name that I'm hearing a lot of, and you know, I'm one of those believers where there's smoke, there's fire, is Jordan Tyson. Apparently the Giants took Jordan Tyson out to dinner, and you know, I think if you're going to wine and dine the guy, you're really invested in the person, and I think this is going to be that selection. Give Jackson Dart another weapon, especially Malik Neighbors coming off of an injury, help easing him back in, not having to be not having to be take the whole load of the offense right away. Okay, here we are with Miami, who actually also has 2 selections in this draft, and I think they have a lot of directions they can look. They can look at the secondary, they can look at the receiver position, they can look at the offensive line. But I think with their new defensive coordinator, which is the Packers defensive coordinator, loves to run man coverage, and I think they need a number 1 guy, that being Mansour Delane, who was pretty much locksmith at LSU this year. So Mansour Delane going to Miami. All right, here we are with the Cleveland Browns with their first selection of 3. Now, the Cleveland Browns either are looking for wide receiver or offensive tackle. I think at this point, while there's plenty of tackle options, they need to jump on that opportunity. And I think the guy they're going to go with here is Monroe Freeland. Battle tested at Georgia. Excuse me. Battle tested at Georgia and can just come in and be impactful right away for them. This next pick is essentially a shoo-in, I feel, as long as he falls there. It's Mekhi Lemon. Devontae Adams on the last year of his contract, also not getting any younger. The window at Stafford is certainly small now, so just feed him as many weapons as possible to help them kind of get over that hump and maybe get to a Super Bowl. Pick 14, this is another pick that I feel like is a shoo-in, but it's between 2 guys. Those 2 guys being Vega Owane and Kenyon Sadiq. And while Kenyon Sadiq would be a great addition, they did re-sign Mark Andrews, and I know Mark Andrews is older, but I think Baltimore's been at their best just when they've been able to smash mouth people in the run game with Derrick Henry or even runs with Lamar Jackson, and Vega Owane is as good as they come for that. So Vega Owane is a selection for the Ravens. Tampa Bay can look a couple directions too. They can look at offensive line, they can look at edge, they can look at corner. I think just at this point, they're going to get a great value pick, and taking someone who, if it weren't for an injury, would definitely be gone by this point. And that's Jamal McCoy. His 24 was amazing, and I think the Bucks, at this point, it's just the value is too high to not pass up. All right, New York Jets here with their second selection. We have them taking Arvell Reese at pick 2. Now I'm going to have them going in the similar direction as the Giants, working for a receiving option for Geno Smith. And I'm going to be going with Omar Cooper Jr. Omar Cooper Jr. is a great yak guy, and I think he's going to complement Wilson's style really well. So give Geno 2 solid options to work with in the offense. All right, here we are with the Detroit Lions. Now, I know the position the Lions are definitely looking for. It's certainly offensive tackle. And the 2 guys that they're definitely going to look at this point would be Caden Proctor and Spencer Fano. But I think the guy that makes the most sense here is Caden Proctor. They need to replace the left tackle. Fano played right tackle at Utah. And Caden Proctor's a behemoth kind of guy, and I think Dan Campbell is just going to be really intrigued by his size and what he can do. We know Campbell likes to do those little gimmicky things with his offensive linemen. Not that that's the reason they'll take Proctor, but knowing that Proctor's done some of those things at Alabama, I think Dan Campbell will try to get creative with him in certain situations as well. All right, 18 with the Minnesota Vikings. Now, this is going to be kind of a chalk pick, but I'm going to go with Dylan Thieneman. I do think Minnesota might look at the defensive interior as well, losing Hargrave and Jonathan Allen, but also losing Harrison Smith. I think they look for his replacement here with Thieneman. Even though they stylistically play different, I still think Thieneman could come in and really have a great impact, Harrison Smith-like impact for them. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Thieneman in this one. Carolina. Another one that I feel like is kind of a shoo-in if the guy's there, and that's Kenyon Sadiq. I think the Panthers were pleased with what Bryce Young was able to do at the end of the year, and they want to see him continue doing that. They're going to have to supply him with weapons, and Kenyon Sadiq, they don't really have a premier tight end. I think Kenyon Sadiq and Tetero McMillan could really, really help Bryce Young continue that ascension that he was doing towards the end of last year. All right, here we have Cleveland Browns with their next pick. Had them taken Monroe Freeling earlier, and now they're going to look for a receiving option. And the guy that I think they're going to go for here is going to be Denzel Boston. Now, I know Jerry Jeudy had a really disappointing year last year, but, Jerry Jeudy's more of a route runner, get open kind of guy. They need a big body guy, contested catch-all guy, and Denzel Boston could be that for them. So give them a complementary style of player next to Jerry Jeudy, and just hope Jerry Jeudy plays better this upcoming season. Okay, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh can go a couple directions here. I know a lot of people are talking about quarterback. I don't know if they pull the trigger on quarterback here. From what I'm hearing, they're high on Will Howard. So I think another place they can look is the offensive line. Apparently, Broderick Jones and their tackles are looking so great. So I think take a guy who can really help anywhere. And his name is Spencer Fano, who said himself, I can play any position on the line. So realistically, it's not a matter of if he'll play, but where he'll play. Because he'll be able to just fill in anywhere that the Steelers would need him to. So I have the Steelers taking Spencer Fano. Now on to the LA Chargers. They're definitely looking for some kind of offensive line help here, but they were looking for more in the interior, and those tweener guys at tackle are gone at this point, really. I don't think they're going to take a Pregnon or a Vasantis at this point. I think they pivot to the defensive line, which could also use some help in the interior. And I think the guy that they're going to go for, who I feel like is being pretty slept on in this draft process, is Peter Woods. Had a down year in 25, but in 24 he was playing phenomenal. So I think Harbaugh loves to invest in the trenches, and Peter Woods would be a great addition to that front. And if he gets back to that 24 form, would be a steal for them. Philadelphia Eagles here at 23. Philadelphia Eagles are definitely a team that always likes to kind of look ahead and draft for the future. And in this case, they're going to be doing that, finding Lane Johnson's replacement. I think the guy that they are going to look for here, they really value top 30 visits. And Max Inahacho is a guy they brought in for a top 30 visit. So I think they're going to bring him in to be the heir apparent to Lane Johnson. He's still young to the sport, only been playing for 5 years. So I really think they like the potential that he can be, especially being able to sit for a year and learn and develop. I think they're willing to take that risk. Cleveland here at pick 24 is actually going to be making a trade. And that trade is going to be with with the Arizona Cardinals. Now I have the Cardinals sending pick 34 and pick 65 for pick 24 and 107. And I think the Cardinals just don't want to wait any longer to get their signal caller for the future, that being Ty Simpson. So we had the Cardinals taking Francis Mauigoa before, and now we have them trading back into the first to get their guy, kind of similar to what Giants did last year. Excuse me. All right, Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears here. Definitely their run defense was lacking, to say the least, last year. And I think there's one guy who can really fix that for them. And that's Keenan McDonald. Doesn't offer much as a pass rusher at this point in time, but surely will help them improve their run defense. Okay, Buffalo. Same kind of situation. Run defense wasn't the best last year. But there's really no defensive interior guys that are really worth, I feel like, at this point. And I think a guy that already has good run defense and kind of has a tweener body is Keldrick Falk. He's already a great run defender and has upside as a passer. And also with his frame, you could kind of move him along the line. So I think Buffalo would really like that versatility with Keldrick Falk. Okay, San Francisco. Kind of similar with the Eagles. I think they're here going to be looking for an heir apparent, in this case for Trent Williams. And I think it's between Lomu and Miller. And I think Lomu just gets the nod just because he played left tackle and Miller only played right tackle. So in that case, they're just going to take Caleb Lomu there. All right, Houston. I have Houston here looking at the interior offensive line. I felt like every time I was watching Houston, CJ Stroud was running for his life. And I think a guy who kind of had an underrated year, phenomenal pass protector, is Emmanuel Pregnon. I think he'll come in and really help boost that pass production. I think he only let up one hurry this year or some crazy statistic like that. So he should come in and really help Stroud have more time in the pocket. Kansas City, back on with their second selection. We had them taking David Bailey first. I had them still looking at the defensive side here. But instead here, we're going to have them taking that pick that or replacing Trent McDuffie, who they traded to get this selection. And they are going to be going here with Colton Hood. So here they get their replacement for Trent McDuffie. All right, Miami. Had them taking corner before, Mansour Delane. Now here I have them adding an offensive weapon. I think this guy falling at this point is a tremendous value, and Miami should jump on it right away. That's KC Concepcion. I think it'll be a great weapon for Malik Willis, especially considering they don't really have any weapons. I wouldn't consider Malik Washington a threatening weapon right now, so adding another guy to help out. All right, New England. I'm going to look at the tackle position for New England. Despite drafting Will Campbell last year, we saw how that offensive line looked towards in the Super Bowl. And I think they just need to keep adding guys there to really solidify that bunch for them. So Blake Miller, come play that right tackle spot. And here we are with our last pick, Seattle. And I think I'm going to have Seattle taking an edge rusher here. They lose Boy Mafe, and they still have DeMarcus Lawrence, they still have Leonard Williams, they still have Byron Murphy, but I think adding a polished guy, older prospect, only reason he's really still here at 25. But I think with Seattle, their window's open right now, and you just take a polished, finished guy, and don't have to worry about it. And that's Akeem Mesidor. All right. That being said, that is the 2026 mock draft. Hope you all enjoyed.